let's face it, no one really likes paying taxes. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to avoid taxes and how I save tens of thousands on my tax bill simply by doing some of these tips and some of these things. So the very first thing is probably the most important thing that you can do, but not everyone can do it. I just want to preface this by saying that not everyone can do it, but if you can find a way to do this, then it can save you literally tens of thousands in taxes like it has for me. So find a way to become an independent contractor. And so I know what you're thinking. This means that you have to run your own business and whatever. Not necessarily. So find a way to become an independent contractor. So here's the deal, is that if you can become an independent contractor, I'll do a breakdown in a second here. This is probably the biggest way for you to write off a lot of stuff towards your taxes. And I'll give you a breakdown of what it is for me. But you can also be an independent contractor and an employee. But it's important that you file at least one portion of your taxes as an independent contractor in order for you to get your write-offs. And so, just an example here for me, just for the average person, if you're a hired employee, I always use the example because it's kind of common. You're a graphic designer, okay? You're a graphic designer at a company and you get paid, whatever, $40,000 a year, $30,000 a year. If you were to do a side job where maybe you sell your art online, you sell stuff online, maybe you go do YouTube tutorials about graphic design work, maybe you set up your own art show, something along those lines, you can actually, if you were to make money from that, a substantial portion of money, thousands of dollars, $10,000 or so a year, even though your main job is still being an employee, you can file as an independent contractor. I think the limit is roughly actually $10,000. You need to make as an independent contractor in order for you to file taxes. And so that's what I recommend here. Why is it important? I'll give you the breakdown for myself actually here. So as an employee, you can't write stuff off. If you're an employee at a company, sure you can make the business pay for it, not yourself. You can make your boss pay for it, but it doesn't get written off towards your taxes. So if you were to get yourself an art utensil or something as an employee and you're only an employee, you might be able to get your company to pay for it, but odds are you're going to pay for it out of your own pocket and it doesn't count as a tax write-off most of the time. So let's see here. We're going to move on here to this. So you can save tons in business expenses if you're an independent contractor. Even if it's not your main thing, even if you're mainly an employee, you can save tons. So I'll give you my breakdown here. First of all, let's see here. So for me, I'll give you my example here. Again, we're only halfway through the year. Let's say I make $100K in gross revenue. $100K in gross revenue. So for me this year, it's very realistic that I could have $50,000 in business expenses. $50,000 in business expenses, which is a lot. That's a lot. And now you're thinking that a lot of those business expenses are one-time things where you just lose the value, so you're only making 50 grand a year. But no, a lot of this stuff is like investments in the business. So I'm talking about, and you get to keep a lot of it. So I'm talking, like cameras, computers. You can write off a lot of other stuff too. You can write off things like, if you need internet, you can write off your internet bill. You can write off your phone bill sometimes. You can write off lunches and dinners sometimes. It all depends on what your job is. But you can write off all that stuff. You can also write off, here's an important thing too. If you work from home, you're an independent contractor, and you're, this example here, making 30 grand as an employee, making 10 grand as an independent contractor from your house, doing online stuff. If your rent, if your apartment is 1,000 square feet, you can, now this varies from person to person, but if your apartment is 1,000 square feet and you're renting it, and your office is 500 square feet, you can actually write off about half of your rent as a tax expense, which is a lot of money. You can also in certain cases write off all of your rent if you only work from home and you just work all the time there and you have a big office space and so on. You can legally do that. And so whatever your rent is, if it's $1,000 a month and 12 months, you can write off $12,000 in rent payments if you work from home. something to think about. So there's some other business expenses here too that I'll just mention here too. So if you're an independent contractor, you can write off things like let's see, light bulbs for me if you're doing YouTube. If you're a vacation vlogger and if you're a vlogger, you go on vacation, everything on that trip expensed. Okay, vacation, advertising for your business, mileage in your car, gas for the car. Depreciating assets, so this could be computers and equipment as well. Those can be depreciating. So if you're to pay $5,000 for an asset which may or may not contribute to your business, you might be able to write off 50% of it, or all of it, or 25% of it. It depends on the asset. So you can write off tons and tons of stuff. So for me, you know, I'm essentially knocking down my taxes. I was doing the math here actually. So for me, my taxes, if I were to just keep all of that $100,000 gross, roughly, then I would have to pay roughly $35,000 in taxes. Just rough estimate, okay? $35,000, maybe $40,000. And because of all these tax knockdowns, all these business expenses, I'm probably going to pay closer to $18,000 in taxes. If the income were to stay the same and it's $100K gross revenue, so this is saving me $17,000. Just by doing business expenses from being an independent contractor. It's really interesting. So it's something for you guys to think about. Is it worth it? Is it worth picking up a side hustle for you to save tons in taxes? It might be. So that's just one overview of what some people can do. So there's other things you can do. We're going to talk about a TFSA. TFSA. So tax-free savings account, this varies country by country, might even be state by state, but I think it's country by country. So what you can do in Canada is you can put away, you know, $5,500 a year into either an RRSP account or a tax-free savings account, and whatever you put in there gets deducted from your taxes. Although actually the tax-free savings account, it's a little bit more complex than that. You don't get it directly deducted. We're going to get to that in a second here. But if you have any sort of those tax-free savings accounts in your country, then it can save you, it can knock down your tax bracket by $5,000, $10,000 sometimes. So think about that, look at that for your country. A big thing here is stocks. And this ties into TFSA here. If you were to have $10,000 that you've made in net income that you put into your checking account, if it just sits there, you're only going to pick up 0.1% on your money. You're losing money by keeping it in your checking account. So what you can do is you can put it in your stock account through your tax-free savings account, and any capital gains or dividends you make through your tax-free savings account investments in stocks, it's a little bit complex, they're tax-free. So if you were to put away, for example, $5,000 into this tax-free savings account and then invest it in stocks, and on that $5,000 you make $2,000 in 1 year, that's all tax-free. It doesn't even count towards your taxes. They won't even look at it. So that's something you guys can do when you invest in stocks. Try to check for these in your country, a tax-free savings account. And you can put away usually $5,000 to $10,000 per year into those accounts, which can add up to a lot of money, especially if the stock were to go crazy and double in 1 year. We're talking thousands of dollars like per year that you can save in taxes. That's just pure profit. The other thing too, let's see, so investing in stocks, so capital gains, by the way. If you don't even have a tax-free savings account, capital gains usually in your country is taxed at half the rate. Only half of your capital gains are taxable. So for example, if you were to buy a stock for $5,000 and it sells for $10,000 and you sell it, you have a $5,000 profit. Now out of that $5,000 profit, only $2,500 of that can be taxed at your normal tax rate. You keep $2,500 just for you. It doesn't get taxed at all, and then $2,500 gets taxed at whatever your tax rate is, 30%. So again, there's a big advantage to doing for taxes by investing in stocks. Dividends too. So dividends, I'll give you the Canadian example here. So if you were to invest in a stock and it were to pay you a 4% dividend, let's say you have $1 million portfolio and it pays you a 4% dividend. Well, those dividends will pay you, $40,000 per year. and dividends are usually taxed substantially less than the average income. So I think I was doing the math on this. If you were to be in like a 40 grand income bracket and it was all from dividends specifically, they would only be taxed at like 6% in Canada. So we're talking, that's knocking down your tax bracket by like 10, 15, that's knocking down your taxes from like what, 10, 15, 20% down to 6. But just by investing in dividends, if you were to do that in the future. So dividends are taxed at a much lower rate than normal investments do. So there's that, there's capital gains. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, I know that this video is a little bit confusing. So we're going to talk about real estate quick here. I made an entire separate video on this. Real estate is the biggest tax haven the average person can have, or the average entrepreneur can have. I made an entire video on this, but here's what you can do. When you buy a property, we'll say it's $1 million, okay? $1 million property, it's an investment property. Every single year, you can take a 4% depreciation on it. So 4% of the value of the building, let's say we'll just say $1 million, okay? $1 million, you get to write off $40,000 as a tax break. Every single year is a tax deduction. Even if the property doesn't actually depreciate in value, you still get to write it off every single year. You also get to write off the interest on the loan, on the mortgage. You get to write off a bunch of building expenses, any upgrades you want to do, any maintenance you get to do. You get to write that all off. And there's a lot of people out there that have a net income of real estate of millions of dollars. If they have tons of properties, they can make millions of dollars per year in net income and pay zero tax on it. Robert Kiyosaki has a great book on that. I gave that more of a breakdown on a separate video called How to Legally Pay No Taxes Using Real Estate. And so these are the ways that the average person can avoid taxes. Those are the general ones here. There's a lot more ways that you can do, like you can loan money to your spouse and your kids and so on, but that's a little crazy. So to summarize here, the best thing that the average person can do is develop a side hustle and become a partial independent contractor. You need to make at least 10 grand a year for that to happen on your side business. So again, I gave you my breakdown. I'm probably going to save tens of thousands of dollars on taxes just because I'm an independent contractor that owns a few businesses here. I didn't incorporate my businesses. I might do that in the future. We'll see. But that's what the average person can do. That and essentially investing. Those are the two easiest ways for you to save thousands of dollars on your tax bill every year. So what do you guys think? Are there any other ways to save on taxes? There probably are. A lot of them are probably illegal, but these are legal ways for you to do it. So what do you guys think? That's going to wrap this video up. If you're interested in more in building a business and becoming an independent contractor and saving on taxes that way, you might want to check out my Wealth Accelerator course in the link below. It teaches you, what it takes to run a business, run a side business, how to start one, what it's like, what's most important to run a business, so on and so forth. Lots of people have joined. I always forget. I think we're at like 75 or 100 people. So if everyone's liked it so far, so feel free to check that out in the link below. I'd like to thank you very much for watching. You're all very beautiful people, and I'll see you guys in the next video.